Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today Pod 46 I'll be looking at a result against Tottenham by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce after the game. So let's begin. Palace fell to just their second defeat in their last 9 games, as Christian Erikson's 30-yarder kept Tottenham Hotspur's title hopes on track in issue 25. The Dane's goal 12 minutes from time proved to be the game's decisive moment, as he pinged in a trademark blast from range to clinch an 8th win in a row for the North Londoners. But Sam Allardyce's evening was soured further due to a nasty-looking knee injury to Mamadou Sakho that saw the influential defender stretch it off in some agony early in the second half. The Eagles edged the opening half with their best efforts on goal falling to Christian Erikson and Townsend, but in truth neither side created too much in the way of goal scoring opportunities, and it needed Erikson's moment of magic to separate the two sides. The first half saw both teams cancel each other out, but Palace more than held their own in the opening 45 minutes against the title chasers, and looked the likeliest to take the lead before the break. The first couple of sightings in goal fell to the two biggest threats on the pitch, with Harry Kane scuffing a half volley wide before Benteke should have done better with a tame skidding effort that was easily dealt with by Hugo Lloris at the other end. Further opportunities at goal were few and far between before half time, with Wayne Hennessy untroubled when a snapshot by Erikson came straight to the Welshman on 28 minutes. But the busiest player on the pitch was the former Spurs man Townsend, and 7 minutes before the interval he burst into life once again when he was found by a nice pass by Sakho in space, and after driving forward he blasted a powerful drive just over the bar. That was the highlight of an opening half that Allardyce would have been happy with, but this mood quickly changed 6 minutes after the restart when Sakho and Kane battled for the ball. The defender came off worse as his knee buckled trying to make a challenge, and after several minutes of treatment he was stretchered off amid a huge reception for the Eagles fans, devastated to see the Frenchman exit the fray. That seemed to puncture the mood inside Selhurst Park, and Spurs sensed blood and water, and they could have gone ahead just a couple minutes after play resumed when Erikson found Kyle Walker on the right, who picked out the run of Dele Alli at the back post, but somehow the newly crowned PFA Young Player of the Year side-footed a brilliant opportunity wide of the post. The England star then curled a shot goalward soon after, but it lacked the required bent to test Wayne Hennessy, who claimed it well, and the pressure continued to be cranked up by the visitors as Eric Dyer diverted a header from a corner over the top, but eventually the patched up Palace defence were breached with 13 minutes to go from out of nowhere. Spurs had possession inside the Eagles' half and looked to be going nowhere until Kane handed possession to Erikson. And with time and space 30 yards out, the Dane took aim and showcased his wonderful ball-striking ability from range by sending a fizzing strike into the bottom corner of the net to give his side the all-important opener. All the chances were falling to Mauricio Pochettino's team, and Toby Alderweireld could have even put the result beyond doubt when he hooked a ball and turned goalwards, but fortunately for the Eagles it bounced wide of the mark. However, despite 7 minutes of injury time, Palace just couldn't find a way out of their own half, as Spurs took a stranglehold on the game to condemn Palace to their first home defeat in 5 games. Crystal Palace held Tottenham for much of the game, but with the quality that the North London side has, a tactical change at half-time allowed them to take a greater hold. They made that dominance count with Christian Erikson's goal and a narrow win. Now for some positives from the game. The fact Palace fans may feel slightly disappointed not to have picked up a point from this match is an indicator of just how far the Eagles have come since Sam Allardyce took charge. Now for some negatives from the game. The injury to Mamadou Sakho at a point where he had returned to his peak form is gutting. Palace's defensive problems mean that they now just have 2 fit centre-backs in Martin Kelly and David Delaney to choose from. Crystal Palace suffered just their second defeat in 9 games as they lost out 1-0 at home to title-chasing Tottenham Hotspur on Wednesday night. A shot from distance from Christian Erikson settled the contest at Selhurst Park, with the Danish midfielder keeping the North Londoners' hopes of catching Chelsea at the top of the Premier League alive. It was harsh on Palace, who had made 2 changes from their game at the weekend, and battled well throughout and looked to be heading for a decent point to keep their fine run of form going, only for Erikson's second half strike. But what do we learn from the game? Here are 5 things. Number 1. Calmness personified. A couple of times in the first half when the ball was delivered into the box, Mamadou Sakho showed his class and coolness under pressure, firstly backheeling back to a teammate before cushioning a header back to Wayne Hennessy, leading to cries of sign him up from the Palace fans. He also threaded through a superb pass for Townsend a few minutes later. Number 2. Keeping his cards close to his chest. John Moss was not the most popular man in SC25 last night, as he showed leniency with 2 Tottenham midfielders in the first half. After booking Victor Wanyama early on, he could have easily been shown a second yellow after a poor challenge on Townsend, but instead gave him his final warning. And Moussa Dembele was certainly fortunate to escape a yellow card for his persistent fouling, mostly on Wilfried Zaha. As it was, Tottenham boss Mauricio Pochettino decided to take both players off at half time. Number 3. A case for the defence. With 5 recognised centre-backs at the club, Sam Allardyce recently admitted that Palace were fortunate in their position when asked if Chelsea legend John Terry was a summer transfer target. But with Mamadou Sakho going off with a serious-looking injury, in addition to Scott Dann and James Tompkins both being out for several weeks, Palace are suddenly stretched in that key position, with only Delaney and Martin Kelly fit options to play at the heart of the defence. Number 4. Kelly's emergence continues. Injuries to Scott Dann and James Tompkins have led to an extended run in the team for Martin Kelly, and the former Liverpool defender has certainly seized this opportunity. He came with some criticism earlier this season when he played out of position at left back, but he's come into his own in his preferred role of centre half, with another solid performance here to keep Harry Kane quiet. And number 5, the Great Dane. It looked like it wasn't going to happen for Tottenham Hotspur as Crystal Palace frustrated the visitors for large periods at Sellers Park. But with Spurs needing a goal to keep their title hopes alive, up popped Christian Erikson with a superb strike from distance. It was out of nothing, but was perhaps the only way the game was going to be decided, with the former Ajax man showing his class with a 30-yard drive that arrowed into the corner past Wayne Hennessy. So now you've had the match review, we're now going to move on to the player rankings. But before we start, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Crystal Palace for all the latest news. And for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check out our Facebook group so you can join in with discussions, read the latest news and post your own opinion. So like I said, if you're on social media and you do want to get in contact with us, then of course you can follow us on both Twitter and Facebook, and you can find both of these pages by using the @eCrystalPalace. Now I personally would highly recommend you do follow us on both of these pages, as we do regularly update them with all the latest news. So if you do want to keep up to date with all things Palace, then of course these 2 social media pages are the places to go. And you know, that can include things like player and manager interviews, so after the game. So if you do want to hear what the manager and what the players had to say after the game on how they perceived the performance to be, then of course do give us a follow, because we post all the relevant links to all the articles there. And obviously the thing you can do on Twitter but not on Facebook, on Twitter you can post Twitter polls, and we do regularly post Twitter polls. So if you do want to get involved and have your opinion heard and vote for what you believe about the club, then of course do that. And there was actually a good poll the other week, a few weeks ago, about how many points you think we may need to stay up, and there was quite a lot of contrast between people's opinions. So if you do want to get involved in things like that, then of course do follow us on Twitter. But obviously if you're on Facebook, of course follow our main Facebook group, which is exactly the same as the Twitter one, all the latest news. But you know, I would highly recommend you do join the Facebook group, which you can find using the @eCrystalPalace group. And obviously I would highly recommend you do join the group, which I'm actually a member of, because after the game quite a lot of fans do go on there to post their own opinion, and this can be about how they thought the players performed, or anything they felt or just saw in the game, and that could be their opinion, that could be someone else's opinion. And you know, it's a really good place, the Facebook group, for people to share their opinions. So if you do like to get involved and read other people's opinion, and also post your own opinion so other fans can see and hear what you have to say, then of course do join the Facebook group, put a post on there, so obviously you can share your views, your opinions with other fans. And it's like I said, I'm on it personally, I'm on the group, so if you do ever want to contact me, of course do go onto the Facebook group and you can write a message to me on there, so of course I can reply and obviously see your opinion. But even if you did go to the game, or you know, you don't want to comment something about the game, if you had some pictures of the Homestead Fanatics banners or anything like that, a video of the game, then of course also do post that on the Facebook group, because I'm sure there may be 1 or 2 fans who weren't able to get to the game, so it might be nice for them to actually see what the atmosphere was like with the game. But like I said, you know, if you do like opinion and you do like to discuss and talk with other fans, then I would highly recommend you do join our Facebook group. And much like the main Facebook and Twitter pages, we do post regular news articles on there, so it just gives you another place to get all the latest news. But obviously, any of these social media pages you want to follow, you know, Twitter, Facebook, do you find all the links in the description below on YouTube, Acast, and also iTunes. But obviously, if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, obviously you can't do this on Acast or iTunes. But then, of course, do drop a comment below the video about what you thought about the game and also who you thought a standout player was. And obviously, much like the Facebook group, it's because I want to hear your opinion. I want to hear what you had to say about the game, and that's a really good thing for you to do. You know, you comment your views below in the YouTube comments about the game, so you can compare it to my opinion and how I thought the game went. And obviously, you know, in the last few weeks I've actually set a challenge to the listeners, and that is for you to list your player ratings, giving the players a rating from 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. And this is how you thought the players performed throughout the game. Now obviously, towards the, you know, when I go on in the podcast, I will go on to give you my player ratings, rating all of the players, obviously using that scale from 1 to 10, and then I'll give you a little bit of a discussion about how I thought they performed. But what I want you to do in the YouTube comments is to comment below with your player rating, so I can see how you rated the players, and obviously compare that to my opinion and see whether we had a sort of similar outlook towards how we thought the players performed. And you know, like I said, commenting in the YouTube comments is fantastic to share your opinion, but also it's a good way for me to compare my opinion to yours on how we thought the game went. And considering, you know, on Twitter, I went on Twitter after the game against Tottenham, and certainly there were mixed opinions about the game. So if you do like opinions, then of course do comment below on the YouTube page. But even if you don't want to do that, comment something about the game, comment with your man of the match, which I'll go on to talk about later. Also, just someone who you thought had the biggest influence in the game. But like I said there, if you do want to keep up to date with all things Palace, then don't forget to follow us on all of our social media pages. But enough of that, now to move on to my player ratings. Starting in goal with Wayne Hennessy, who I am going to give a 7. Nothing he could do about Erikson's supreme strike. Had a stable performance otherwise. So obviously Wayne Hennessy here, I've given him a 7 because once again, as a whole, it was a pretty solid performance from him. But obviously, you know, the main talking point of the game was, you know, the goal that we conceded. And considering we went up to about the 70th minute at 0-0, you could say it was a pretty decent performance. But, you know, we did concede that goal. And I'm not really going to blame Hennessy too much because, like I said, it was a supreme strike. It was a really good goal from Erikson, you know, took it on one foot, controlled it with the other, and had a shot from about 30 yards and curled it into the bottom corner. So in my opinion, that was a very good goal. And certainly, conceding that goal didn't feel as bad as conceding maybe a scrappy goal with a scramble in the box, because certainly there was a lot of quality there from Erikson's strike. And you know, I've seen a lot of debate on Twitter about whether it's Hennessy's fault, whether it isn't, whether it's the defence not closing him down quick enough. Maybe I've even heard, which is something I sort of agree with, you know, Puncheon got turned too easily to allow Erikson to have the space. But whether it may be for the goal, it was a really good goal. And personally, based on the whole performance as a whole, the fact that considering we had fatigue issues, you know, from the game against Liverpool on Sunday, we still performed pretty well. And I can, you know, I'm quite happy losing a game when we've played well and actually it's a bit of quality that actually takes it to win the game. But certainly, I personally am not really going to blame Hennessy. People may say sort of he didn't shuffle, he didn't, you know, try and get the movement right, he didn't try and move and step over to try and save it. But if you look back at the replays, it's really close. He saw it late because obviously the defence was there and he couldn't see it. He got down low, but obviously he couldn't quite stretch far enough from his position to save it. And to be honest, at least he actually tried. There's been goals we've conceded towards the beginning of the season where he was quite static, he didn't do any movement, but at least this time he saw the ball coming late and at least tried to make a save from it. But other than that, which some people blamed him for, which I'm not really going to do, he had a really stable game, you know, making crosses. And to be honest, I talked about it being, you know, a good performance from us. This is actually quite a dull game considering the first half finished 0-0. You know, Wayne Hennessy playing in goal had to wait till the 60th minute before a shot on target actually, or Tottenham actually got a shot on target, which just shows how, you know, sort of lacklustre, let's say, Tottenham were in the first half. And you know, Hennessy obviously didn't really have to do much. But obviously that shot from Ali, you know, Ali, he's a very quality player and we've seen that this season. But obviously Hennessy was able to get his reflexes right and obviously make the save from distance. So on that instance, he had time, he had the space, he had the positioning right, and he obviously made the save when Dele Alli shot from distance. So, you know, I talked about him having a stable performance. He did, because when he was called upon, from the 60th minute onwards, he was able to make the simple saves, which was fantastic. But, you know, like I said, you know, he did well with most other balls. So there was a few punches, a few catches, you know, a few blocks which he made throughout the game, which were very good and what you would expect of a Premier League goalkeeper. But, you know, he got beaten by that rock of, you know, from Erikson, that good goal. And like I've said, could he have got down quicker to save it? Could he have stepped further to the right to save it? But like I said, I personally think because he saw it late, then he obviously didn't have as much chance to dive on it. And if we look back at the saves, obviously where he's lost a bit of weight in training, he was able to get down quicker than before and was able to almost save it. But I'm not really going to criticise him too much for that. But like I said, a 7 for Wayne Hennessy, a very stable game, and no blame on the goal from him, in my opinion. Obviously, moving on now to the left back Jeffrey Schlupp, who I'm going to give a 6. Had a good first half, but appeared overwhelmed by the introduction of Sissoko. So obviously Jeffrey Schlupp here, I've given him a 6, and you know, I thought it was a very average performance from him, and it wasn't the best performance we've seen from him, considering how well he's been offensively and defensively in the past few games. But certainly, especially in the first half, he actually started the game pretty well. And considering I said Wayne Hennessy didn't have a shot on goal, or you know, Tottenham didn't have a shot on goal, you know, from the 60th minute onwards, that's when they had their first shot on goal. You know, you can assume that it was quite a dull game, and actually Jeffrey Schlupp actually played quite well in the first half. But you know, when Tottenham changed their formation, they changed their system, it appeared to sort of overwhelm Jeffrey Schlupp. He sort of got overrun a bit, and obviously when Sissoko came on, that little bit more pace in the midfield for Tottenham, you know, Jeffrey Schlupp, although he is fast, he did struggle to cope with that. And considering we all thought, and I personally thought, that Van Aanholt would come back into the game, because you know, Van Aanholt would have been the fans' choice. He is the first choice left back, you know, this season. So you would have expected Van Aanholt to come back in to get his fitness up or for Saturday, and maybe Allardyce was saving him for Saturday. But personally, I would have assumed Schlupp would have got Van Aanholt would have gone straight in there, considering how good he was against Liverpool, and obviously how good he is as a left back anyway. But you know, Schlupp came in as first choice, and yes, he done all right, and you know, he put himself about a bit. But like I said, good first half, second half a bit more overwhelmed, and obviously that resulted in him not really having his best game for Palace. And you know, I talk about him not having his best game, one of the things really is, you know, he was really good going forward, like I said, in the first half especially, but obviously towards the end of the game he was getting dragged out of position quite a lot, whether that be a loss of concentration. But you know, there was a few times where the likes of Dele Alli kept running rings around him, you know, dragging him out wide, so there was space in behind the defence and things like that, you know, which were a bit sloppy about Schlupp's game. But as a whole, I think it was a pretty average performance, and certainly he does deserve the 6. So do comment below with what you think, because I've seen a little bit of a divided opinion about this. But certainly, like I said, good first half, a slightly less second half, and obviously, like I said, Dele Alli, quality player, but obviously was running rings around him. Obviously, moving on now to the centre-back Mamadou Sakho, who I'm going to give an 8. Was excellent up till the injury, with some delightful touches and sound defending. Hopefully the injury won't be as bad as first feared. So obviously Mamadou Sakho here, I've given him an A. Once again, it's a fantastic performance from the Rock at the back. But before I go on to talk about his performance, I must really go on to talk about the injury, because, you know, we're all hoping, we've all got our fingers crossed that it isn't as bad as it looked. Because if you look back at the replays, and I've seen it many times, you know, he goes to make a tackle to get the ball off of Harry Kane, does very well, gets the ball away from Harry Kane, but as he does that, his other foot, which he didn't use for the tackle, he's gone and fell on that, and obviously as he's done that, his whole body weight was on his knee, and he twisted his knee. So it looked like a really serious injury. Could be an ACL, but obviously we don't know till the scans come through, and obviously until Allardyce confirms it. And actually in his press conference today, as I'm recording, you know, the one before the game against Burnley at the weekend, you know, he said that it's probably a twisted knee, like I said, you know, where his body weight fell on his knee, but he couldn't really speculate. He doesn't want to say how serious it is, or obviously how long Sakho will be out, obviously because they don't know the results of the scan. So as soon as the scan results are revealed, then Allardyce will share with the fans, the media, what the state of you know, the injury is. But we're all hoping that it isn't a bad injury. We're hoping that maybe he may be out 1 or 2 weeks, because really he's been quality, and you know, in this game up until the injury he was fantastic, and that's why I've given him the 8. But like I said, I've said this when Wickham got injured, ACL injuries are horrible and can be season ending. So let's just hope that it wasn't a knee, it wasn't a serious injury, and the fact that he got taken off was a precaution because he couldn't walk on it, and maybe he twisted the knee as opposed to, damaging his ACL. But, enough of the injury really. We're not going to dwell on that too much because his performance was fantastic in the game. Some delightful touches from him like always, and sound defending. We kept Tottenham quiet up until about the 70th minute, and that was obviously Sakho went off in about the 60th minute. So up until that point we were absolutely solid, and obviously Sakho and Kelly partnership was the main reason to that. The word I used to describe his performance was majestic, and certainly this was majestic performance. The back heel to get the ball, when he had the ball in his own box, you back heeled it to get it out of danger when under pressure. Also, the casual nod back, so when the ball came into the area, he'd be able to casually, calmly just head the ball back to Wayne Hennessy so he could claim the ball and we keep possession. So little things like that is what we really like about his performance, and that's the quality he's brought to the side. And like I said, hopefully the injury isn't as bad, because if it is bad, we might not want to sign him in the summer because he may not fully recover. So hopefully it isn't that serious, because certainly in this game he showed once again quality signs that he is an actual quality player. And I've said it already, I really want Palace to sign him, and hopefully this injury isn't too serious. But all the fans inside Selhurst Park were chanting sign him up, and certainly I have to agree with the Homesdale fanatics, with all the other fans, because we seriously do need to sign him up, because this is he's a fantastic defender and exactly what we need. So hopefully, like I said, the injury won't be bad, and obviously so we can manage to get him on a permanent deal in the summer. So we've got the likes of Burnley, we've got the likes of Hull coming up. So if we can win these games and secure our Premier League status for another year, then hopefully the negotiations can carry on, and obviously we can sort out a permanent deal. But like I said, an 8 from Mamadou Sakho. Up until the injury, he was absolutely solid, and obviously the reason why Palace were drawing 0-0 up until that point. And obviously we talk about game-changing moments when he went off. That sort of getting rid of that defensive rock at the back, that sort of consistency we had at the back, getting rid of that caused us to sort of drop our game a bit, and obviously that is why Tottenham went on to score. And like I said, I'm not really going to blame the defence too much for that goal or the goalkeeper, because in my opinion it was a very quality strike from Erikson. Obviously moving on now to the fellow centre-back partner of Mamadou Sakho, and that is Martin Kelly, who I'm going to give a 9. Few defenders are capable of keeping Harry Kane quiet, but Kelly and Sakho did just that. It was an excellent performance from Kelly. So obviously I talked about, after the Liverpool game, about how Kelly's performances have improved considering how bad he was at the beginning of the season. And in this game, I've given him a 9. It was another step forward from him, another fantastic performance, and another game where he's continued his form. And considering that Sakho might be out for some time now, and the likes of Dan and Tompkins may not be back till the end of the season, we're going to have to rely on Kelly to play at centre-back. And based on this performance alone, I certainly will be absolutely fine and happy with that, because this performance showed what a class defender he is. And I've talked about this in the past. He isn't really a left back or a right back. He's more of a central defensive, a centre back. A central player, because he's tall. He's not that quick, so he can't really play a fullback role. And also, he's not that mobile. He can't really turn that quick, and he likes to play the ball. So it's better for him to play at centre back. And certainly, Allardyce has seen this and played him there. And he's actually seen the best out of him. We've seen what he can do now, and it's brought out the best off of him. And considering Harry Kane is one of the best strikers in the league, in my opinion, one of the form ones, probably, he got in the team of the year. So certainly, he's had a quality season. But in this game, Martin Kelly and Sakho, that partnership kept Harry Kane very quiet, and considering the goal came from Erikson, just shows how well the two of them defended against Harry Kane. And they've done just that. Their main aim was to stop Harry Kane, because he was their main goal threat. They've done exactly that, and I've said this already, it was an excellent all-round performance from Martin Kelly. And on the day, I've given him a 9, and arguably, questioned hands down, he was Palace's best player. And to be honest, in my opinion, I think this is probably his best ever game in a red and blue shirt, maybe minus the game against Tottenham in the FA Cup last season, where he scored the winning goal to get us through to the next round. But other than that, I think no questions about it, this was probably his best game in a Palace shirt. And I talk about a best performance. He got into the right positions. He made some fantastic blocks, in and around the area. And obviously in the second half, with that pressure of Sakho going off, he carried on that form. And that's obviously why I've given him a 9, because you can't blame him for the goal that went in. And obviously his sort of defensive contribution throughout the whole game was obviously fantastic. But like I said, Martin Kelly, a player rejuvenated under Sam Allardyce, and hopefully with the injuries we've got, he can carry on his form to help us keep solid at the back, because he's shown us so far how good he can be in that position. And as I'm recording, it's actually his birthday today, so happy birthday, Martin. Congratulations on a very solid performance once again, and I hope you enjoyed your day. Now to move on to the right back, Joe Ward, who I'm going to give a 6. Like Schlupp, Ward had a good first half, but found it a great challenge when Son came on. So obviously Joe Ward here, I've given him a 6 because much like I said, like Schlupp, you know, in the first half it was a very dull game, finished 0-0 in the first half. So, you know, we had a pretty decent game. You know, we kept Tottenham at bay, and considering, you know, Joe Ward, Jeffrey Schlupp, you know, they had quite an attacking game. They actually done very well to keep Tottenham quiet in that first half, and considering, like I said, Tottenham didn't have a shot on target until the 60th minute, it's just credit to how well, you know, the whole defence worked. But also, you know, Schlupp and Joe Ward must get some credit for how they defended in the first half. But, you know, when, like I said, like with Schlupp, when Tottenham changed their system and they brought Son on, they brought Sissoko on, they had that little bit more pace out wide. You know, the likes of Ward, Schlupp, they did struggle slightly more, but it didn't really affect their performance so much that they didn't make any faults. And actually, unlike, you know, Schlupp, I thought Joe Ward was slightly better than Schlupp in the fact that he kept making these tackles. You know, when in possession, he tried to sort of shield the ball and keep possession so Tottenham couldn't attack it. You know, when even when they had the ball, he'd make sure he'd done his man marking. He was, you know, touching their shirt, getting close to them to make sure they didn't have any room to run. So in that respect, he had a very good defensive performance. But, you know, the second half was nowhere as good as how good he was in the first half. And, you know, if it was based on the first half and if the game finished 0-0, I think we could say it was a very good performance from him. But like I said, in the first half, a very comfortable first half from him, you know, because Tottenham weren't really playing that well. Their system wasn't really working. He ventured forward quite a lot, so Ward got forward quite a lot, tried to get crosses in, tried to, you know, make runs into the box, which was fantastic. You know, that's why his first half performance was so good. But obviously, like I said, when Heung-min Son came on, you know, that sort of formation change at half time, you know, Ward, because of the pace of Son, he found himself sort of on the back foot, obviously being the lesser defender, let's say, or the lesser player, you know, not as good as Son. And that's not saying that Joe Ward's bad, but Heung-min Son's been in fantastic form, much like Harry Kane, much like Dele Alli this season. He's been fantastic, and obviously the pace of him as well as his skill, obviously Joe Ward did struggle with that. But I've given him a 6 because, like I said at the beginning, you know, it was a very good first half. In the second half, he sort of died down a bit, wasn't as good as he was in the first half, but still done that job defensively. But the only reason I think his performance did dip is obviously the impact of Heung-min Son coming on, and the fact that that sort of pace, that sort of injection of energy did affect the way he played. But, you know, if he can carry on this form, I still think, you know, we might need another right back in the summer, and I'm sure many fans will be the same because we want some more sort of competition for his place. But certainly with performances like this, you know, he'll probably be one of the first names on the team sheet, because if you've got a player who can constantly put in the same amount of effort, put in the same amount of skill every game and be very consistent, then of course that's what we want in the team. But Joe Ward, I've given him a 6, a very good average performance from him once again. Obviously moving on now to the midfield, starting with Luka Milivojevic, who I'm going to give an 8. As Spurs pushed for the winner, they stretched Palace's midfield out. Milivojevic did the defensive work well, but was exposed by the tactical change. So obviously Luka here, I've given him an 8 because once again, from the new signing, he was fantastic once again. And, you know, we knew when he came to the club, we didn't really know much about him, but we thought, you know, would he be this player that's been missing since we lost Jednak? And he certainly proved that since he's come in. And in this game was another example of how crucial he is and how good of a signing he was, because his defensive work was fantastic. Now, obviously, the first half, most of the team played quite well and we were on top at that point, but towards the end of the game, you know, Spurs, with that little bit more fitness from that extra day they had training, you know, they tried to push for the winner, they tried to get sort of a second goal lead, and because of that, you know, Palace's midfield was stretched out, so obviously we were tired, there was a lot more space, a lot more gaps for Spurs to attack. But I thought Luka done a fantastic job of covering that area, you know, doing that defensive work. And obviously because of the tactical change, you know, we set up to defend a certain way against, you know, the 3/5 at the back that Tottenham were playing. So once that tactical change happened, you know, Luka managed to sort of adapt to that formation, adapt to that sort of more attacking presence that Tottenham put forward. And obviously I personally think he'd done it well. And, you know, I said about him being very consistent. You know, the Serbian, he never puts in a performance under a 7. So that's just, you know, shows how hard working he is, you know, how assured he is. And in this game, he carried on that form. You know, he was hard working, you know, on the ball, wouldn't let players get past him. And obviously he was assured, because when he had the ball, you would think, okay, he's either going to spread it out wide with a cross, he's either going to, you know, keep it calm and have the ball. And there were actually a few occasions where he was absolutely calm. You know, he got the ball, there was 2 Spurs players around him, so instead of running forward and maybe losing the ball and losing possession, he sort of tricked the players into thinking he was going forward, then turned around and passed the ball back. So that sort of calm defending just really personifies how good of a performance he was. And, you know, he had his handful. You know, I talked about Sakho and Kelly making blocks. Playing that defensive midfield role, he made so many blocks, and there was one from Harry Kane, and I talked about keeping Harry Kane quiet. You know, Luka Milivojevic done a fantastic job of doing that, you know, right on the edge of the box. Harry Kane was about to go on and goal, and obviously Luka stuck a leg out, you know, managed to get in the way, and obviously put the block to get the ball away, and that denied a certain clear chance. You know, if Harry Kane had got past, clear-cut chance, and considering how good he's been this season with his form, he probably would have run straight through them and obviously went on to score. But I've said this already, you know, Luka, since he's come to the club, you know, we didn't know much about him, but he's proved us all his quality, his worth, and, you know, with performances like this where he's defensively strong, I think we can give him all the credit he deserves. But, you know, yes, we did go on to lose the game, and, you know, I'm not really going to blame any of the players, because, like I said, it was a fantastic goal. I personally think, you know, Luka done his defensive job. You know, he'd done what he had to do to stop the likes of Dele Alli, you know, Harry Kane and Erikson. He stopped these players from having chances, and obviously it just took, and it just showed really, the whole team played defensively solid, and we all played well defensively, but it just shows that it had to take a moment of quality to actually win the game, rather than, you know, players going to win the game because they were the better team. You know, it took them a little bit more class to win the game, because obviously how well we were defensively. But like I said, Luka Milivojevic, I've given him an A, because once again it was a very solid performance from the defensive midfielder, and obviously even though there were changes throughout the game, he was still putting a hard working and assured performance. Obviously moving on now to the recently returned James McArthur, who I'm going to give a 6. Had a few chances to take a shot, but the rustiness followed months out showed a little. So obviously James McArthur here, I've given him a 6, and, you know, he's just come back into the squad so from injury, so you can't really expect him, you know, to be at his best ability. And certainly in this game he did show that, and he did show signs throughout the game where he was a bit rusty, you know, and an example of that is, you know, we had a few chances where he could have had a shot and maybe scored a goal, or could have had a shot, or could have had a pass and, you know, could have assisted someone for a goal, but because obviously he's been out for a while, you could see that he was rusty. And to be honest, we weren't hoping that he was, you know, we didn't expect him to be fantastic, because we knew he's just come back from injury, and he didn't disappoint, because, you know, he wasn't completely rusty and completely useless throughout the game. But, you know, he still done what he could, but obviously that sort of lack of fitness, that sort of lack of match fitness did show towards the end of the game, certainly. And obviously he didn't really have as much impact as we know he can have in past weeks, and I certainly think, you know, the next game he'll probably go out of the team again, be on the bench, because he can be a good impact sub, and if he can get his fitness back up, I'm certainly sure that he can help the team and, you know, have more impact on the team. And I talked about him coming back into the team. Obviously he was brought in for Yohan Cabaye, and obviously Yohan Cabaye, he's getting on a bit now. I think he's 31 years old, so towards the end of games he's going to sort of, you know, lose his fitness, and considering he played most of the Liverpool game, you can understand his fitness might be a bit low. So you brought in McArthur just as a sort of straight sub, you know, straight swap, you know, one player who can play defensive and attacking, the other can play both in positions as well. So we brought, you know, McArthur in for Cabaye, just to give, you know, Yohan Cabaye a little bit of rest, just because obviously, like I said, how well he played against Liverpool, and obviously he played in the middle of the park, so rather than him playing sort of behind the striker like him and Puncheon, Cabaye and Puncheon have been doing in the last few games, McArthur played alongside Milivojevic, and actually done a very good job. You know, he put himself about, tried to make blocks, tried to make tackles, tried to sort of put pressure and sort of hunt down the other players in front of him by using his high press game, which he does fantastically. But like I said, he done all of the stuff that you want him to do, but obviously he did look a bit rusty at times, and there are a few chances and stuff where, you know, you would expect him to do better, but you can understand and have sympathy considering he's just come back from an injury. And I talked about him having a chance of being rusty. You know, there's a lovely cross, you know, from Zaha. We know how good Zaha is. You know, he put in a lovely cross to McArthur, and he didn't quite sort of connect with the volley. and obviously he hit it first time and straight at Lloris. So that just shows, you know, even though he's still rusty, he can still get into the area and still, you know, hit a ball on the volley. It wasn't like it went wide. He just hit it straight at Lloris. So hopefully, as he regains his fitness, he can become more sharper and actually regain the form he had, you know, sort of in December time, where he was scoring goals, assisting goals. And if he can carry on that form, you know, certainly a chance like that where a cross comes in from Zaha, if he has full fitness, he probably would have buried that past Lloris. But certainly a good performance from him. We weren't expecting too much from him, like I said, because of the sort of fitness issues. But certainly a 6 from him, I think, is a fair result, given the impact he had on the game. Also, moving on now to the captain, Jason Puncheon, who I'm going to give a 7. As with Milivojevic, Puncheon struggled to adjust to Spurs changing their approach at half-time. So see, Jason Puncheon here, I've given him a 7, and much like the rest of the team, he had a pretty decent first half, and that's obviously why I've given him the 7. And, you know, I talked about Spurs changing their formation, changing their setup. What they've done, instead of playing with a back 3, they went instead and played with a back 4, meaning there was an extra man in the midfield. And certainly, Puncheon, you could see with him, you know, he did still struggle to adjust to that, and he did struggle sort of because Spurs changed their tactics. He took him quite a lot of time to adjust to that and try and be able to stop Spurs' attacks. But to be honest, you know, although he struggled and although he wasn't at his best today or yesterday against Spurs, you can't really fault him. His effort was fantastic. You know, he kept going till the end, and considering he's the captain now, obviously he can get substituted off, but you rarely substitute your captain, so he's got to be on the pitch for the whole time, and his fitness has improved incredibly, so he's got that effort, and also he's got the passion. So even when we were 1-0 down and Spurs were sort of pushing to get a second goal, he still had that passion to sort of, you know, spur the team on so we can go on and try and get something from the game. And that's what you want from your captain. You know, if the captain's not playing at his best, you know, we know how good Puncheon can be. If he's not playing at his best, you still want him to motivate the team, and certainly that's what he done towards the end of the game. And, you know, as you know, when the end of the game happened, you know, once the game came to an end, you know, you can understand, you know, the players being happy with the performance, because I'm sure the captain, yes, we lost the game, but he'd be happy with the performance and the effort, obviously, all of the players put into the side. But, you know, I talked about him struggling to adjust to the way that Spurs played, you know, when things weren't going the way. So obviously when he wasn't able to adjust to their ability or their change, he wasn't able to cope with the possession they had. He wasn't able to stop their chances. When it didn't go their, you know, when it didn't go his way, he tried hard to win the ball back, so get possession back from us, because, you know, obviously Spurs dominated, and obviously that happened plenty of times on Wednesday night. You know, he wasn't playing fantastic, but he tried hard, tried to win the ball back, and there was a few times where he had some fantastically timed tackles, got the ball away or got the ball forward, and obviously tried to set up attacks, and that was good. That's what you want from your attacking midfielder and your captain. You want them to create chances, you want them to, you know, do well for the team, and on Wednesday, you know, he'd done exactly that. But the only thing really that was lacking, and considering he hasn't scored a goal this season, it was that final killer ball. So he's really good at being creative and controlling the midfield and finding other teammates, but the thing he hasn't done this season is had that final killer ball. And yes, he's playing in a different formation, playing as sort of a centre mid now as opposed to playing as a cam, so he's playing more sort of central as opposed to playing attacking or defensive. So you can understand him not really having that effect of, you know, running into the box and having shots. But in this game, you know, that was all that was lacking. Yes, he had the sort of effort and the sort of working hardness, I suppose, to win the ball back, but all he didn't have is when he had the ball, he tried to create for the team rather than having that killer shot and trying to, you know, have a shot or, you know, go through and goal. And that's really what's been lacking this season. You know, with him getting the captaincy, he's improved his form drastically, but the thing that's really lacking is, yes, he's still being creative, but he isn't, you know, creating opportunities for himself. And if he had been at his top form against Tottenham, and, you know, when we played Tottenham last time at Sellers Park, you know, he did score that goal on the Pardew, so he's got that quality there. But obviously on this day, you know, he was lacking that final killer ball. But like I said, do comment below with what you think, and whether you do think the captaincy is working well for him, because I personally think it was a fantastic decision by Sam Allardyce to make him the captain. But like I said at the beginning, Luka Milivojevic, fantastic game in the first half, sort of died down in the second half because he struggled to change and adjust to the way that Spurs changed their setup. But, you know, like I said, giving him the 7, because although he sort of dipped towards the end of the game, you can't really fault his effort and obviously his passion. Obviously moving on now to the front three of Wilfried Zaha, Christian Benteke and Andros Townsend. So I'm going to start on the... I'm not going to say a wing because they did swap wings, Andros and Zaha. They did swap wings quite a lot throughout the game, but I'm going to start with Wilfried Zaha, who I'm going to give a 7. Repeatedly fouled during the game, Zaha did well to stay calm for as long as he did. It was a clear tactic from Tottenham to slow him down, and it worked. So say Wilfried Zaha, I've given him a 7 because once again he set very high standards of the way how he's performed in the last few weeks, and once again it was a pretty good performance from him. And although it wasn't excellent and he didn't score a goal or he didn't assist, it was still a game where he did show the quality he's got, and considering Spurs are interested in signing him, it certainly was a good advert to them of the quality he's got and what he could bring to the side. But obviously we're all hoping, much like the Sakho injury and the Sakho deal to get him here permanently, we're all hoping that Wilfried Zaha signs a new contract, becomes the highest paid player at Palace, because certainly we need to keep hold of him because he has got some serious talent. But like I said, you know, during the sort of summary, you know, Tottenham, their tactic was obviously to slow him down, and they've done that by keep fouling him. You know, Kyle Walker especially, there was a few times where he kept pushing him in the back. There was one time he actually pushed into him so hard that he actually rolled and hit the advertising board. So it just shows that, you know, Tottenham couldn't really deal with him, so what they had to do, they had to completely stop him, completely slow him down. And to be honest, it worked, because, you know, he was getting frustrated because he wasn't able to make the runs because he kept getting pushed over and fouled. And, you know, Spurs repeatedly done that throughout the game. It slowed the game down, it slowed him down, and eventually, you know, it stopped him having chances. And actually, from a Spurs point of view, it worked really well because you were able to stop the best attacking threat. But, you know, we've known Zaha to get a bit frustrated and a bit irritated, you know, when things like this happen, when he doesn't have the chances to run forward and because he's getting fouled. You know, in this game, he kept absolutely calm, and that's the good thing you want from, you know, a player. You want them to, even though they're frustrated and even though all these bad things are happening to them, you want them to stay calm, as he did, and he kept composed towards the end, even to the end of the game. So he still, even though we were 1-0 down, tried to go on and attacked. But like I said, the tactics from Spurs to slow him down worked absolutely fantastically. And I talked about him being fouled. The main reason for that is because he was doubled up on all the time. You know, 2 defenders on him, whether it be Vertonghen and also Kyle Walker, or whether it be, you know, Sissoko coming back and defending, whoever it was, he was always doubled up on him. Because you've got 2 players by him, you know, beside him, there's no way he can get forward. And even though he was double marked for majority of the game, there was still a few times where he was able to dribble past 2 or 3, even 4 players at times, and just bamboozle them with his skills. Lovely footwork from him. And there was a few times where, you know, Kyle Walker, he absolutely ripped him to shreds. You know, him and Sissoko were trying to mark Zaha. He done a few sort of little shimmies, a few little sort of skills with his feet to get the ball past them, and he ran past both of them. So he's got the skill there, and obviously because he didn't stay frustrated, he was able to continue with the game, go on and attack them. But like I said, you know, he will be, I wouldn't say disappointed with his performance, but he would have expected more from him considering how well he's been this season. But like I said in last week's podcast, you know, he's set the bar so high now with the ability he's got, that now, you know, we do notice considerably when he has a slightly off game. And it wasn't really a terrible game from him, but he didn't really have as much influence as he would have liked. And, you know, I'll go on to talk about the other player on the wing, but I personally thought that Townsend had a better game, and whether that be because he's much more informed than Zaha, or whether that be is against his former club, I'll go on to discuss that. But like I said, Wilfried Zaha playing on the left or the right wing, wherever he was positioned throughout the game, because obviously he switched with Townsend. A good game from him, not the best, but certainly a well-deserved 7, considering, you know, he kept getting fouled, you know, kept getting slowed down, but he still used his skill and his pace to obviously try and attack and try and sort of put pressure on the Tottenham defence. Obviously moving on now to the striker Christian Benteke, who I am going to give a 6. Tottenham centre-backs didn't give Benteke a chance. The striker was marked out of the game, a task that other strikers struggled to complete. So to Christian Benteke here, he's been one of the most informed players of the last few weeks, and you know, at the Liverpool game, after the Liverpool game, he had scored 5 goals in 5 games. So he was on red hot form and came into this game, you know, much like all of the players, lacking that sort of fitness because he was playing only a few games or a few days after the Liverpool game. But certainly, I personally thought his physical presence was good throughout the game. You know, when we pumped the ball to him, he tried his best to sort of header it down. And considering at the beginning of the game there were 3 Tottenham defenders playing in that back 3/back 5, you know, he still was able to win the headers even though there was 3 or 5 of them. So that just shows how good of an aerial presence he's got. But to be honest, you know, unlike the game against Liverpool, Tottenham are much more better defensively, so they were able to deal with obviously the way that Benteke plays, and most of the time he was marked out of play because the defenders, Vertonghen, you know, these players were able to get to the ball first or manage to get taller than him to head the ball away. And obviously, like I said, most other sides haven't been able to do that. You know, the likes of, you know, Liverpool, and obviously, you know, the likes of Leicester, they weren't able to cope with Benteke. Their defenders weren't able to get high enough to get or win the headers against him. They weren't able to stop him from getting chances on goal. But obviously, Spurs are a lot more disciplined defensively and a lot more better than Liverpool. So, you know, he was restricted to few chances. And, you know, I've said this already, many sides this season have struggled to cope with his physical sort of aerial presence. But Tottenham certainly did do that. But, you know, yes, he didn't have that many chances, but there was one chance, you know, in the first half. You know, he had a shot blocked, so he dribbled past a few players, received the ball, had a shot, but obviously he didn't put enough power on it, and it was an easy save, obviously, for Lloris to make. And obviously I talked about his form being so good. Obviously, towards the end of the game, he got substituted off for Fraser Campbell, and that was just to save his leg. So we've got an important game against Burnley on Saturday, so we want to save our key players for that. So that's why the likes of, you know, Cabaye were rested, so they can be fully, they can have their full energy and they can have their full fitness for the game against Burnley on Saturday. But certainly he had that one chance. He obviously had that one shot on goal. Obviously he got saved by Lloris because there wasn't a lot of power on it. But other than that, he didn't really have that many opportunities. But for the fact that he tried his best and he put himself about a bit, obviously that's why I've given him the 6. Obviously moving on now to the final player of our starting 11, and that is Andros Townsend, who I'm going to give a 7. Forced to play as a wing-back for much of the game, but did what was asked of him. Also provided some good set pieces throughout the game. So for the Andros Townsend, I've given him a 7, because much like Zaha, you know, it wasn't his best game for Palace, but certainly he still put himself about, and considering it's against his old club, he done pretty well, in my opinion, to actually go out there and attack them, and he didn't really let the occasion you know, affect him really well. And I talked about us being quite compact in the first half earlier on in the podcast, and certainly the main part of that was playing as a back 6. And, you know, for parts of the game we actually had 10 men behind the ball, so we were really sort of trying to protect that 0-0 lead we had at half time. And certainly Townsend playing as a sort of a wing back, you know, trying to give a little bit of protection but also to get closer to the defence so we can counter attack more. You know, that sort of positioning was fantastic from him, and obviously that's something that Allardyce has improved. And actually, talking about him playing as a wing-back, there was a fantastic tackle he made in the second half where I think it was Heung-min Son was about to run into the area. Townsend managed to, well, he was marking him, man-marking him, saw that he was going to cut inside, so you know, Townsend got down and was able to sort of get the ball away with his legs. So it just shows, you know, how good of defensive work he's got. You know, the fact that he can track back and also make a tackle like that, which can actually stop a goal-scoring opportunity. Because certainly, if Townsend didn't chip the ball away out for a throw-in, maybe Spurs could have gone on to score a goal from that situation. But you know, Allardyce obviously said to him before the game, you know, when you get the ball, try and run direct at the players, get to the byline, and then chip the ball in. He tried to do that, and he done exactly what was asked off of him defensively and offensively. And obviously he didn't really have that as to great effect because, like I said, Tottenham a very good disciplined side, so of course we were restricted to a few chances. But you know, he got the he didn't get the assist for the goal against Liverpool, but he did put in that corner delivery. And in this game, Andros Townsend, there was a few set pieces, whether it be, you know, corners, whether it be some of his free kicks, all of them were fantastic, lovely deliveries. And that's another thing really I could pick out from his game. But the thing really that stood out for me is the fact that he was the hardest working player on the pitch. And, you know, he did look like the one who would separate the two sides. So we talked about Erikson earlier on being the person, the one bit of quality that, you know, stopped it from being a 0-0 game was Erikson. In the first half, you know, Townsend looked like to be that player who would break the deadlock and actually get us through the game. You know, he kept running at the fullbacks, like I said, he kept causing problems, kept using his pace, kept cutting inside. All of these things he done were fantastic, and that's what he done in the first half. And to be honest, he was the hardest working player. I talked about, you know, Puncheon keeps trying, has that passion to, you know, to go on, and he tries to all he can for the team. You know, I think Townsend did it even better than Puncheon did. You know, he kept working. He was the hardest working player on the pitch, and obviously, you know, kept trying to get something against his old team. And considering, like I said, it was against his old team, he didn't let that affect him, and actually put in a very solid performance on his behalf. But, you know, much like Zaha, because they kept changing wings, you know, towards the end of the game, Townsend was playing, you know, playing on the right hand side, I believe, instead of playing on the left, and he sort of faded as the game went on. But that's understandable, considering he was playing so well in the first half, and obviously the energy, and he wants to preserve himself for the game against Burnley. So I don't really blame him for putting in less effort towards the end of the game, because obviously he played so well in the first half, and he obviously wanted to preserve his energy. But like I said, Andros Townsend, one of the most informed players with the likes of Benteke and Zaha in recent weeks. A fantastic 7 for him. But like I said, playing as a wing-back role, done defensive work fantastic, and obviously going forward and providing balls from set plays. All of that was fantastic. Obviously, moving on now to these substitutes. Starting off with Delaney, who I'm going to give a 7. Introduced early in the second half for the injured Sakho, and coped well considering he hasn't featured for months. Did a decent job of keeping a defensive shape. So Delaney here, he came on obviously when Sakho was injured, and I've said about, you know, we hope Sakho's injury is not as bad as it looked. But, you know, Delaney, if Sakho's out for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, you know, we can understand. We've got Kelly, who's been fantastic, been in fantastic form, but we've also got Delaney, who done a fantastic job when he came on the pitch, and obviously that's why I've given him the 7. You know, he is one of the oldest players, so you can expect him to not be at his best. You know, he might have lost his legs. He's not playing as well. He's not as fast as he used to be. But certainly when he came on for Sakho, he coped really well, and even though he hasn't played in a few months, he still had that match fitness. So obviously that's just credit to what he does on the training ground, because he hasn't let the lack of gameplay affect how he plays. And I personally thought he done really well, and you know, he done a decent job of keeping a defensive shape. He made sure all of the players knew where they had to be. He kept the shape of the team, made sure everyone knew their position. So he done everything right throughout the game, and that's why I've given him the 7, because you want a substitute to come on and either, you know, win you the game, make an impact, or just to keep the solid, you know, the solidity of the team. And obviously he done that very well. So hopefully Sakho's injury won't be that bad. But if it is bad and we're going to miss him for a few weeks or a month, certainly I will be happy enough seeing Delaney play at centre back. Obviously now move on to these 2 other substitutes. I'm not really going to give Yohan Cabaye and Fraser Campbell any ratings, because they weren't really on the pitch long enough to make an impact. But Yohan Cabaye, he came on from McArthur. I talked about McArthur, you know, sort of not having the game fitness. Obviously Cabaye came on, you know, for him. And the only reason he came on is just to bring a little bit more energy to Palace's midfield, because he had that more match fitness. And he done exactly that. You know, Cabaye put himself a bit, tried to, you know, attack the ball, tried to create opportunities, but obviously Spurs had that little bit more quality, and obviously to win the game, hence why they went on to win the game. And, you know, same for Fraser Campbell. He was brought on just to rest Benteke, so Yohan Cabaye came on to rest McArthur, and obviously Fraser Campbell came on to rest Benteke, obviously because Burnley's a big game and we want our first choice striker to be fit for that game. So Benteke will hopefully play that game. And obviously, you know, with Fraser Campbell, he's got a little bit more pace than Benteke, might not necessarily have the quality to be a Premier League striker, but certainly what he done in this game, he kept chasing down Tottenham's backline, trying to tire them out and try to, you know, create a few opportunities. And certainly he done what was asked off of him, and that's what you want. You know, he may not have the quality, like I said, we all laugh at him, you know, he isn't fantastic, but if he can do that, if he can come on in the game, make a little bit of an impact by tiring the back 4 and then sort of trying to attack from that, then certainly that's what you want off of a player of his ability. You want them to make an impact like that. But really, just to summarise the game now, I've got sort of 4 bullet points here, really, just to describe and summarise the game. You know, Palace, we did really give Tottenham a challenge. You know, we really did try and match them, and that's especially in the first half, where, in my opinion, we did dominate. And obviously, because we dominated so well, Spurs, that caused them to make the tactical change, bringing on, you know, Heung-min Son and also Musa Sissoko. And obviously, because of that, our midfield was stretched out, so we had to sort of try and put more players out wide, because they had more midfielders playing out wide, so that stretched us out a bit and that left space. And obviously, in my opinion, that space eventually led to us conceding the goal, because there was lots of space there for, obviously, you know, Spurs players to go in and attack. And, you know, we still look like there's a bit of lack of squad depth. So we changed a few players around, but it looks like that when we need to change the team around to get more fit players in, because we've got other games coming up, we still haven't really got that quality. So the fact that we brought in Fraser Campbell, he isn't really Premier League quality, so we brought him on. It just shows the lack of squad depth, the fact that we haven't got another striker of Christian Eriksen's ability, the fact that we haven't got another defender to come on to replace Sakho. Things like this is, quite concerning. The fact that we haven't got good enough players to play, to control the game. And certainly, I personally think we could have done with maybe a better striker to come in this game, so we could preserve Benteke, and maybe another sort of defensive midfielder to come and protect the lead. But I'm sure that Sam Allardyce will sort that out in the summer, make sure we get some new signings in to obviously further improve not only the first team squad, but also just to get our squad depth a little bit more better. But like I said already, the fitness of the players is my final point really. The fitness of the players, it doesn't really help when your fitness is low and you're playing a game only a few days after. And considering Spurs had that one extra day training, it may not seem a lot, but it certainly did have a big impact on the way our team played. And it didn't help us, the fact that we didn't have a lot of fitness and that sort of fatigue of not, the players' legs not being able to run as fast and things like that. It did have a slight effect on our game, and obviously as the game went on towards the end of the game, it did really show. But like I said, we carried on, we had that passion, we had that determination to keep Tottenham to a 0-0, but eventually, I've said this already, it was only one bit of quality which did win Spurs the game. Now to move on to my Man of the Match award, but I'll fold it out and give you my Man of the Match, and who I thought had the biggest influence on the game. I'm now going to give you the results from my Twitter poll. So obviously, if you do want to vote in next week's Twitter poll and have your opinion heard on who you thought the best player was, and obviously the player with the biggest influence, then of course do head over to my Twitter at the CPC Podcast, give me a follow so you can vote in the next Twitter poll when it obviously comes up in your feed. So obviously, my account at the CPC Podcast is much like the official Crystal Palace account. I do post regular news articles on there, as well as a few polls, so I can hear your opinion on what you think about Palace. So like I said, if you do want a chance to vote in next week's Twitter poll for the game against Burnley, and obviously any other polls or any other news articles you want to read, then also do follow me, as well as following the main Crystal Palace account. But certainly, do follow us for that. But if you do want to get in contact with me, yes, you can use the Facebook group and the Facebook page, but also do contact me at the CPC Podcast, obviously, so I can get a DM straight to my phone, so obviously I can discuss with you anything you want to talk about Palace. But obviously on Twitter, on the Twitter poll, there's 4 nominations. So for this week's Man of the Match poll, I've had 4 nominations, and to be honest, it was quite easy for me, because although it was a alright performance from us, it was lacklustre in the fact that it wasn't fantastic. So the 4 players I've put on the shortlist was Martin Kelly, Mamadou Sakho, Luka Milivojevic, and obviously Andros Townsend. So just to go through why I've put each of these players on the shortlist, and obviously before I go on to give you the results and obviously my opinion, I put Martin Kelly on there. I gave him a 9 in the player ratings. He was fantastic defensively, making blocks, making tackles. He was absolutely outstanding at the back for Palace. Obviously, Mamadou Sakho, obviously, unfortunately for us, he got injured. But his defensive work was fantastic. The time he was on the pitch, he was putting in blocks, putting in tackles. And also that little sort of bit of magic where he done a back heel to Wayne Hennessy, and also where he headed the ball back to Wayne Hennessy, just showing the class he's got from a defensive perspective. And then, obviously, Luka Milivojevic, he's almost always on the shortlist because his performances are fantastic in this game. Just giving a little bit of protection to the back 4. Yes, the back 4 were pretty solid throughout most of the game. Luka done his bit in the midfield, tried to protect the back 4, tried to, set up counter-attacks by spreading the ball forward and, making these long passes, which he can do. So he did have a good game in that respect. Everything else was fantastic. And like I said, in the player ratings, there was one tackle in particular where he stopped Harry Kane. If he hadn't have stopped Harry Kane, he probably would have gone on to score. So that just shows how crucial the block and how crucial that sort of interception was in obviously keeping us in the game. And then obviously Andros Townsend, it was sort of between him and Wilfried Zaha for who gets this spot. But I personally think both of them players did attack well down the flank. But because Andros Townsend, because it was against his old club, and yes, because he was slightly better than Wilfried Zaha, that's why I put him on there. He did run to, especially in the first half, he kept running to the flank, trying to make a nuisance of himself. There was actually a chance as well where he had a shot from just outside the box which went just over. So actually he had a few chances to obviously get us in the game, but also he was looking to create for his other teammates by getting to the byline, crossing the ball in, and like I said, using his pace and skill like Zaha does to obviously get into the area. But obviously, just to give you the results of the Twitter poll before going to give you my personal man of the match, in last place, in 4th place with 16% of the votes was Andros Townsend. In joint 2nd place with 21% of the votes was Mamadou Sakho and Luka Milivojevic, which means the winner of this week's man of the match poll with 42% of the votes for the game against Tottenham is Martin Kelly. So congratulations to Martin and happy birthday for today. But you do win my man of the match poll for the game against Tottenham, which was a very solid performance from you, and unlucky not to get the clean sheet because your contribution defensively was absolutely fantastic. And you know, I think it's quite obvious, you know, I could give it to any of these players for, you know, Kelly, Sakho for their defensive performance, you know, Milivojevic as well for a defensive performance, and obviously Townsend for his attacking performance. But, you know, I am going to go with the poll. You know, Martin Kelly was absolutely fantastic, you know, he was outstanding against Tottenham, and if it wasn't for him, maybe we would have conceded a few more goals, because then, like I said, them blocks, them tackles he made to stop Harry Kane getting through, and the fact that he kept Harry Kane quiet is, you know, an impressive thing in itself. So congratulations, Martin. You win my personal man of the match poll, my man of the match for the game against Tottenham, but also you do win the fans man of the match poll for obviously, you know, your solid contribution to the team. And certainly, I said this when I was giving you your player rating, if he can continue this form, you know, with Sakho being out injured, if he can continue this form, certainly he can, you know, rock solid, he can claim that place back in the first team, because I've said it already, he isn't really good at left or right back, so he's found his right position now, so hopefully he can excel in that and maybe cement it as his own place in the team. But all of the players had a fantastic game. Obviously them 4 players as well had even better games, but once again, Martin Kelly, his defensive contribution was outstanding once again. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce following the game.
Sam, just 1 goal in it today. You gave him a good game. Are you pleased with the team's performance?
Oh, I'm delighted with the team's performance tonight. As good as any of the games where we beat the big boys, and sadly for us, just couldn't hold out for the draw today after such a big effort. And really, it's more to blame by our lack of recovery time than it is about the effort to the players today. They were bound to tire a little quicker than Tottenham on the basis that we had to play Sunday. Tottenham played on Saturday, they had the extra day. Terrific team as well, terrific subs to bring on, but we really did match them, particularly in the first half, and we gave it our best efforts today and just wasn't quite good enough to get us at least a point.
Yeah, how much of a difference did their half-time substitutions make? Because both the players that went off had committed quite a few fouls.
Well, Wanyama shouldn't have stayed on the pitch. There's no doubt about that in my mind, but I think the referee was very kind to him. The second tackle was probably worse than the first one he was booked for, but he obviously didn't do, in my opinion, his job correctly, because he knew he'd booked Wanyama before. So he actually let him off what should have been a definite booking for me. So that would have helped us immensely trying to get this result. But that's something that we can't control. And what we did today, we did our very best to try and get another fantastic result here at Selhurst Park. Again, the fans kept behind the lads all the way through, appreciated how hard they've worked and how well they challenged Tottenham tonight.
And unfortunately, we saw the injury to Mamadou Sakho. Is it too early to know the extent of it yet?
It is yet. It obviously looks like a knee ligament injury. Just the extent of it we won't know until we scan it in a day or so.
Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Sam Allardyce had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Tottenham Hotspur. But make sure to come back next week for my post-match review of the game against Burnley. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.